We are precisely 2 weeks away from the kickoff in the 24-25 EFL Championship season. It's a big welcome to Portsmouth, Derby and Oxford, newly promoted from League One. Goal number 1 was to get there. You can talk to me about goals number 3, 4 and 5, but goal number 2 is to stay there. So my question for today's video is, will New Boys survive the Championship? You can get involved with your view in the comments right now, or head over to the community tab on the Benjamin Bloom football channel, where that poll there, it's not 0% anymore, it is live. People are voting how many of the newly promoted clubs, Pompey, Derby and Oxford, will survive in the 24-25 Championship. Go and get voting. We are going to dig in, and we're going to start with Portsmouth, who were the champions in League One. Long time away. One of those clubs where they'd been down in the sort of third and fourth tiers as well in English football, where generally over history, that's not been the level that Portsmouth have played at. So you will have this kind of feeling now that they're back is, oh, that's more Portsmouth's level. Obviously, plenty of good Premier League years as well, and that FA Cup in there. But you would think they're sitting more in their kind of natural home now, second tier. And can they put together a team under John Mousinho that can not just survive in the second tier, but challenge? It was brilliant under John Mousinho last year. First full season, wasn't it? And he really got them going. Nearly 100 points as well, 97. And Portsmouth go into this championship campaign in the EFL with a record of 1 defeat in the last 19 games. A side built on the goals of Colby Bishop and the experience of Marlon Pack, Paddy Lane, Abu Kamara. Lots of numbers from him, although we suspect, like a lot of promoted teams, when you go out with a good loan player, that he may start to be utilised in the championship by Norwich. There's always that kind of contention, isn't there, with loan players of, can you make your team as good even as it was as the one that got promoted? I've got to say, reasonably quiet in terms of recruitment. We've got the names over there: Jordan Williams, Josh Murphy obviously from Oxford, who we're going to talk about in a minute. So a few League One players there: Sam Silvera and Jordan Archer. Silvera more so. You'd expect Archer, just some experience there in the goalkeeping roster, but Silvera, a kind of championship squad player. So it feels a little bit more like padding than necessarily getting in there and going for it. But hey, we always cite continuity as a big thing, particularly in the first couple of months of the season. If you've just scored 97 points, don't rip it up and start again for sure. And just a very, very hyped manager. Maybe it's a bit patronising to John Mousinho, but whenever you hear a well-spoken football manager, very classist kind of ideology, isn't it? They're always kind of listened to him. Mousinho was very much an outlier with his work with the PFA, and he was coaching at Oxford, and straight into the job and straight into great success there. We heard the normal, oh, it's the cheap option, but hey, it was the right option now looking at that. So yeah, very interested to see how John Mousinho does with Portsmouth. Although I like the continuity, maybe a little bit of concern in terms about being championship ready and the recruitment. But you can have your views on that in the comments. And welcome back, Derby County. If we're talking about how a club is perceived in terms of, well, certainly the last 10, 15 years before the complete breakdown of Mel Morris's ownership, Derby were always the team challenging to get into the Premier League and never quite making it. And that did for them in the end, didn't they? Derby kind of the poster boys for spending restrictions coming in, and this idea that you can have an owner with lots of money, but you can't just throw everything. And there's a limit, and Mel Morris definitely reached that limit, but rebuilt under David Clowes, 2 seasons in League One, and they got the go-to guy, didn't they? Paul Warren, who I've lost count now, he's got 7,000 promotions from League One now with Rotherham, with Derby. He's put up the classic 92 points. Everybody says it, don't they? 2 points per game will see you over the line in a 46-game season, and that certainly was the case. They did have to hold off a good Bolton side who did collapse in the playoff finals. We'll talk about when we get to Oxford. Bolton have been the nearly men, really, in the same way that Darby have been in the Championship before. And Bolton were in pole position there with 10 games to go. Darby coming good under Paul Warne, getting over the line. A team with Nathaniel Mendez-Lang putting up great numbers on the wing. Erin Cashin, the lesser-spotted left-sided centre-back, worth plenty of money. The goals of James Collins. But look at the recruitment now, and we'll look at Oxford's in a minute, but compare it to Portsmouth's. Derby definitely pushing the boat out a little bit more. Good money paid for Ibu Adams, who was there on loan from... where was Adams on loan from? Cardiff last season. And we think a chunky fee there paid. Kenzo Goodman coming in from Europe as well. And then some experience there. Osborne, Blackett-Taylor, Jackson, and a couple of loans as well. And we talked about the goals of James Collins. Well, Jerry Yates on loan. That will probably be the go-to guy now at Derby. So I have to say, and the odds are going to say differently when we get there, but even though Derby finished 5 points back, I think a combination of the recruitment and the fact that Derby are just going to feel at home in the Championship, having been there for 100 years, does almost make me feel a little bit more complicated about the Rams than about Pompey. But we'll get to that at the end. Big onus on Paul Warne now. He's been relegated many times with Rotherham, and I always gave him a bit of a pass saying, oh, club size and budget and all of that. Can't say that at Derby. He's got to deliver at Championship level. He's a star at League One level. He's got to deliver. I'm repeating myself, at Championship level now. Oxford in 5th with 77 points. Remember Des Buckingham coming in to replace Liam Manning and just shooting them into the playoffs and getting over the line. They were really good in the playoffs, I've got to say, and to beat Bolton in the final the way they did, it was a bit of a masterclass on the day of tournament football, wasn't it, from Buckingham? But... excuse me, look at the total, 77 points. I've scrolled back through all the league tables in League One. You're going back to Millwall in 16-17. They snuck in the playoffs and won it from 6th. They are the last team with fewer points than Oxford's 77 to get up and out of League One. Doesn't necessarily, translate to exactly what's going to happen next season, but you have to say in terms of... look, Bolton didn't get there, but I do think Bolton were further down the line than this Oxford team are. But fair play to Des Buckingham. He got through. He got them in there. And look, plenty of new faces coming in there. Fees paid for Kyoso and Curry and El Mazzuni. Sibley from Derby. It's weird that they've traded between themselves, these three clubs. Plaheta, well, he's been around and not necessarily set the world alight in the Championship. Some experience there. Volks and Ingram, and given the number of players that are coming in, you're almost thinking, are they basically going to build a new team now in the Championship? Who were their star men? Cameron Brannigan, always from central midfield. Can he deliver at Championship level? Mark Harris, been up there with Cardiff, hadn't he? He got the goals again. There's the question. Rodriguez, I like as well. But you do feel Oxford are kind of lighter on quality from last season and probably lighter on expectations of the three. And the market bears that out. That is the odds for relegation. Oxford favourites. I'm sure there's some Wayne Rooney related betting on Plymouth there. Look at that. Preston, Blackburn, Millwall, who have certainly been way higher up the table in recent years. Tied up with Derby there. So Derby do go in the pool there in the market for kind of joint third favourites. Look at Portsmouth though. Ahead of Cardiff, ahead of Bristol City, Swansea, Watford. They're at Pompey, they're 13-2 to go down. Remember what I always say here, the market is a liability, not a probability, but sometimes it's a good guide in terms of where people are setting their money. Let's answer the question, will New Boys survive the Championship? I think it's going to be tough for Oxford. We'll see what the poll says today, but would you be surprised if 2 of them stayed? Or would you be surprised if 2 of them went? I don't think all 3 stay, and I don't think all 3 definitely aren't going down. But let me know your thoughts. Get involved in the poll. And check out over here, we'll link up. We've been doing these managers ranking systems videos, ranking from worst to best. Get involved in League One, where these clubs were last season. managers ranked from worst to best.